Complicated to #1 in the Canadian charts.
Complicated, I think, is one of the best pop songs that I've heard in a number of years. I like her youth, her zestiness, sassiness, if you want. She breaks the boundaries. When I was doing the first interview with her for Billboard before it came out, I was talking to L.A. Reid, and I said, "This is going to blow up big." And he said, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, the kids out there in pop music, they know they can't be, particularly the young girls, they can't be Britney Spears. Britney Spears is like the class cheerleader. But the thing with Avril is she is like the average girl sitting in the back of the class in grade 10, chewing gum going, "I am so effing bored." And I said a lot of kids are going to identify with that, particularly in small towns, but even in larger towns and like that. And he said, I think you're probably right.
For a debut CD, Let Go is a staggering achievement. The songs are a blend of adolescent despair and look at me rage. Avril hits the senses with an all-out attack of snarling, tenacious punk pop, flaunting her sassy vocals with impeccable guitar work. One East Coast punk pop singer who was impressed with the album was Lizzie Hale.
When I first heard her album, I was particularly blown away by the uniqueness of it and the fact that it definitely was not your normal pop rock star. I enjoyed the realness of it, and I enjoyed the fact that you can tell that she's doing something that she loves. And it's not, she's not trying to be anything but who she is. I do have to say that my favorite song would be her first single, Complicated. It just even apart from the musical end of it, the musical end is, like I said, it's catchy, it's fun, it was stuck in my head for days.
I love Complicated. I thought it was a wonderful pop song. Skater Boy, if I heard it one more time, and I think that's probably one of the most honest songs down to earth. I think it's probably the song close to her in many ways. The concerns that she was singing about in the songs, whether the lyrics are hers or whether they're one of the people that she was working with, or whether it was a combination of both, certainly struck a chord.
Skater Boy, is that based on a personal experience? I mean, because you say you're writing the song with him now.
I get asked this question all the time, and I have the question memorized, so I'll tell you what I say every time. I wrote that song about a high school experience. Like how I saw people treat each other. Without trying to put people in categories or whatever, label people. I was like a skater in high school, and some other types of people, kind of look down on that because you wear baggy clothes or whatever. And I don't know, I just kind of wrote about that, and there's just like a message in there, basically just saying, don't try to impress other people, go with how you feel, and it's better to do that so you don't miss out on stuff. And that's how I try to live my life.
She addresses important subjects such as, you don't have to be something just because someone tells you to, or because it's, popular, or because, it's the thing to do. Do something that makes you happy and pave your own way.
It seems to me that she has a little bit of a country music background, but I also hear some raging rock and roll influences, and then again I hear some very kind of romantic, sexy pop R&B sensibility, and it's all kind of mishmashed into a thing that is Avril.
Her voice is very eclectic. It's a mixture of different things, and I like the fact that it varies from song to song, and definitely has a unique style. It's not pop, but it's not folk, but it's not rock, and I think it's just an eclectic mixture of all those things, and it shows that I think that she listens to a lot. and she isn't trying to put herself into a specific genre.
She is her audience. It's the first time in a long time that you have an artist merging, you know, at the same time, that she is exactly what her audience is. They are her, and I think they can, and I think everybody's missed the idea of why she is as big as it is, because there are kids saying, I can do that, or I identify with that, or I have a lot of those same problems. Most of the audience knows that they can't be Britney Spears. Britney Spears is the guy that went out with the quarterbacker, or went out with the guy when she was, you know, in the last year of high school. She went with a guy that was in college who had the fast car. Well, you know, Avril wasn't that person, and if you look at her background, she certainly wasn't that person. And there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of angst there, there's a lot of teenage rebellion there. Well, hey, well, you're just describing anybody in a small town.
Let Go is rich, varied, eclectic in style, slickly produced and crammed with a host of killer songs. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but manages to pull off the difficult trick of being playful yet in your face at the same time.
Not often on pop music do you nail a feeling and a sentiment of an audience that felt, quite frankly, like it wasn't being serviced within the industry. You know, they weren't being serviced by Britney. Pardon, most of them would not have known about, say, Annie DeFranco. You know, some of them would. Annie DeFranco's not a mainstream pop artist. But here's an artist, you know, quite frankly, that comes up through the middle with lyrics and songs that speaks directly about them. How often does that happen? Not very often. I think there's two sides to Avril's music today. The one side is what you saw first, and that's obviously what you saw and heard on the album. However, you know, you have to remember she has now been playing that music for some time in the public. It's changed. They matched her with a very, very young and rough and untried and untested band that went out and played in very much a punk pop rock style, if you wish. So I think you're seeing somewhat of a change.
2002 became a landmark year for Avril as her career took off into the stratosphere and her debut album hit the 8 million mark worldwide. Avril's career was on a high and looked set to soar and soar. Avril's journey from gospel to skater punk has been astounding. Her hometown of Napanee are rightly proud of their prodigy.
During the fall of 2001, everybody in Napanee had heard, we'd heard Complicated, then we were starting to hear Skater Boy, and wherever you went, people were talking about Avril. The stores started to be putting up displays, so you walk into Marie's Place, downtown Napanee, which is our music store, big poster of Avril. You go into the Watch Chalet, which is a jewelry store downtown, big poster of Avril.
I don't think we realized how big she was in other parts of the world as much as, you know, people were saying, oh, in Europe she's huge, and, you know, and it was really breaking in a lot of areas where we were kind of like, well, it's Avril, you know, and she's talented, and, you know, but I don't think the community caught up as fast about just how popular she really was.
And she was talking about Napanee, which is, I guess, one of the things that got people really excited, because wherever she went, she sang about it in her album, In My World, and then whenever she was interviewed, she said she was from Napanee. She never said she was from Canada or Ontario, she always said Napanee. So that was exciting for people.
Avril's school principal had no doubt that this determined and gifted pupil would make it as a superstar, and is delighted by her success.
I think that we were certainly surprised by the speed at which she rose to such a high level of success. But Avril was one very determined young lady, and I never had any doubt that she would be successful in the recording industry. She certainly had the talent, she had the plans in place to help support that talent, and she had the drive to work hard at it to make it happen. So there are no surprises there. I don't think of anyone who's known her, seen her perform, but certainly it's been a meteoric rise to success, and we're all somewhat astonished by that and really happy for her about it.
I don't know, it's sort of funny because, you know, it's Napanee. You don't really expect anything big to happen there. So it was sort of like hope for the rest of the the people around this area that wanted to do that, because this is sort of like, yes, you can do that if you're from a small town of like 15,000 people or whatever.
Avril is just certainly the topic of conversation around town. I mean, I think I like to think that we, as a council, helped lead that process a little bit too, that the council was proud of her, and we made efforts to try and bring the community together to rally that support, because again, a lot of people just didn't know how to say, you know, congratulations, Avril, you're doing a great job. I think what we wanted to say is, you know, very seldom you ever see anybody, I mean, we probably never will again in this town, see anybody reach the status that Avril has in terms of overall stardom around the world.